Etzbah is also significant during several ceremonies that are spoken of within the scriptures, within the Torah. The first one, that the finger was specifically said that it had to be used, it had a purpose within this ceremony, was the dedication of the priests. If you look, they had to use their etzbah, their finger, and it dealt with them with the blood and with the anointing oil. The second ritual that the finger had to be used, was the sin offering ritual. And finally, the third ritual that you will find within the Torah, that the etzbah, the finger, was specifically stated that it had a purpose, was the ritual of being cleansed from leprosy. That's significant because leprosy throughout the scriptures has become symbolic of sin. It was something that would separate you from Yahweh, from the nation of Israel as a whole. You became the living dead. And that's what we're looking at right here concerning this judgment. It's the dead seed. This term etzbah, if you look at the numerical value or the gematria, it ties you to another word. You have the letter the letter aleph, which is 1, the letter zadi, which is 90, the letter beit, 2, and the letter ayin, which is 70. If you add that together, you get 163. It's the same value as another word in Hebrew, Strong's number 2183, zanun, which means adultery and fornication or prostitution. It comes from the root zanah, Strong's number 2181, meaning to play the harlot. What's the message? What's the significance of this last judgment that he allows Israel to go through before he says, this is my people and this is Egypt? The line gets drawn in the sand after this. The last judgment that affects Israel and Egypt, the last message sent to them by Yahweh himself, was the very etzbah, was the finger of Yahweh. And his finger was cleansing them from leprosy, the sin that had kept them separated from him. This last judgment deals with these things that he has exposed with the first two judgments. This leprosy, this sin, they themselves open the door to it by playing the harlot and by being the adulterous bride. But here, within this judgment of gnats or lice, you have Yahweh offering the sin offering the lamb on their behalf. And he dedicates them and calls them back to him. He sets them apart again as Israel, as his priests. You have a pattern here revealed to you within these three messages that he speaks to his people. It's the same way he's going to deal with us today as well. The first thing he does is he reveals or he exposes their condition. He exposes the sin within the house, the things that need to be dealt with. The second thing that he does is he deals with those issues. Before he's going to bring you out of Egypt, he's going to deal with these issues that he's allowing to be exposed right now. And finally, the last thing he does is he restores them. He once again sets them apart. He makes them kadosh. He makes them holy unto him again. Now, understanding this message, understanding all of these things that Israel was involved in and what it caused for them in Egypt, you can see how offensive and what a slap in the face some of the things that we're involved in today are to him. Because within the house today, we've brought back some of these very things that Egypt was getting judged for here in Exodus. This judgment was against the Egyptian god known as Geb, the god of the earth. But in mythology, he was frequently called the father of snakes. Who does that sound like? The worship of this individual and his story happened to share many of the same aspects as the holiday of Easter. Is it any wonder why Yahweh is going to judge his house again? Within the quote-unquote church, we've brought right back the very gods that he removed from them here in Exodus. Many claim to take this festival, this feast of Easter, and they say that they're celebrating the Redeemer and their Messiah, but actually they've become involved in the worship of the father of the snakes. The very reason they had to be redeemed, the very thing that had to be removed from them, they brought it right back in and said that it's in his name. And you wonder why he's going to begin to judge his house again. the gods are going to have to fall again. He's going to deal with these other husbands that we continue to bring in. He's going to close the door to them. In Exodus chapter 8, verse 22, he makes the distinction between his people and Egypt. He draws the line in the sand. He sends them 3 messages, and now at this point, he says, now these are my people, Israel, and this is Egypt. In Exodus 8, verse 22, it says, and I will sever in that day the land of Goshen in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou mayest know that I am Yahweh in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be. I want to look at that word swarms because it's only at this point that he does the distinction. He's letting you know, this is hinting for us in the end days, that you're going to have to go through some things. Some of these things are going to affect you. Some of these things he's going to use to get you ready, to make you that spotless bride. But there comes a point where he now says, no more. The word swarms is Strong's number 6157, arob, and it means swarm. It comes from the root Arab, which means to pledge, to exchange, or to mortgage. It has a very interesting word picture. First, you have the letter ayin, resh, which forms another word in the Hebrew. Strong's number 6145. The word ar, it means enemy or foe. And then you have the letter bait upon the end. The bait is the picture of the house. In other words, the enemy of the house. By looking at the definition of this word, you're told that the enemy of the house shows up because of a pledge that was given. When you become involved with the counterfeit, you mortgage yourself to him through this relationship. It should be no surprise to you then when he shows up to collect payment. Just as much as a bank calls in your loan, so will these other gods, this other Pharaoh that you have mortgaged yourself to. But at this point is when Yahweh puts a division between his people and Egypt. That word division is Strong's number 6304. It's the word paduth. It means ransom. In other words, he pays the price on behalf of his people. At the point when the enemy shows up expecting payment, Yahweh himself steps in and he pays the price for his people. But notice, he only pays the price, he only makes this distinction after he has first dealt with his bride, after he has exposed the things that were unpleasing to him, after he has closed the door to these other gods, and after he has dealt with the issues that were in the house. Then he pays the price. Then he draws the line in the sand. In verse 22, we are told that no swarms of flies shall be there. That word no is interesting. We actually looked at it tonight in Hebrew class. The word no is Strong's number 1115, bilti. It means not or accept. But it comes from the root, Strong's number 1086, bala, which means to wear out or to become old. And when I read that term, to wear out, it reminded me of Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, a statement made about the anti-Messiah, a statement made about the latter-day Pharaoh. It says, and he shall speak great words against the Most High, and he shall wear out the saints of the Most High. But here, as we begin to look at it, the statement is made that this doesn't happen. The line is drawn in the sand. What an encouragement to know that here in Exodus you're told that when the enemy of the house shows up and attempts to wear you out, attempts to utterly destroy you, that the ransom has been paid. And a distinction has been put between Israel and Egypt. That distinction is going to be based upon who you have listened to. That word listen is shema. It means to hear, to listen, and to obey. There's an action that must follow this listening. Whoever's seed has gained access to the womb of your mind is going to determine whether the distinction is made or not. This distinction is going to expose one as the vexer, as the secondary wife, and the other as the true bride of Messiah. Now, before we close, notice that this word swarms, arobe, is actually spelled with the same Hebrew letters as the word famine. They are both spelled with the resh, ayin, and the bait. A few weeks ago, we looked at this word famine, and we broke it down. And if you look at the word picture of this word famine, you have ra, meaning evil, and then the letter bait, meaning in the house. Evil within the house. And now we look at this word arobe, which means the enemy of the house. Both the famine and these judgments that will fall serve the same purpose and will be used by Yahweh to clean up his house. The famine is used to expose the house, the things within it that need to be dealt with. He exposes the evil within the house, the spots and the wrinkles. These judgments, when they begin to fall, this swarms or arobe, clarify and show exactly who listened to Yahweh's warning and dealt with these issues and who didn't. If there is no open door to the enemy, if there is no evil within the house, if it's all been gotten rid of and it's all been dealt with, then the enemy or the foe of the house can't come in. It's a call that's going across the earth today for the bride to begin to examine herself and begin to close these doors, to deal with the things that are unpleasing to Yahweh, to get them out. Because if we don't deal with it, there are going to be serious consequences in the days ahead. It'll leave an open door for this enemy of the house to come in. It'll leave a spot. It'll leave a wrinkle. It'll show that we have not listened to the voice of our Messiah. It's time that we begin to deal with these other gods. It's time that we begin to remove these other husbands and truly, as that song earlier stated, make him the air that we breathe. May his word be our very life. Because when the famine comes upon the land, it's the famine of the word. And it's what you've got stored up in here that is going to make you survive, that is going to carry you through these days ahead. It'll be the word within you that causes this line to be drawn in the sand. It's time for the body of Messiah to stand up and say, as for me and my house, we will serve Yahweh. Thank you for listening. I hope you have enjoyed tonight's teaching. Shabbat Shalom.